Hello there, my name is Giles Farmer. I'd like to share my experiences of dealing with miscarriage and supporting a partner through the grieving process. And yeah, just share my experiences and hopefully somewhere along the line it can help someone or give some hope or some, I don't know, some clarity to somebody. So really probably what's useful is if I talk through mine and my wife's situation, and then I can talk to you a little bit more about um, the the way we dealt with it, or are still dealing with it, and everything that was entailed with that. It's something I haven't really spoke about at length before. I think it's a bit of a male condition, and I will talk about that in a bit. But you sort of end up as the partner being the rock as such, that would be required to support your partner and to try and help other people through it, and you deal with your own emotions in a different way. And I think it's really important that you do talk about these things. And I've been lucky enough to have very supportive family members, some anyway, and other friends and so on, and it has been very useful. And I think hopefully, if I just talk about my experience, and even if it helps one person, that one person, that it was worthwhile. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to try not to make it too doom and gloom, although obviously it's a very somber subject, but hopefully it's interesting to some people and so on. So I think it's probably best to just sort of jump in. I'll try and keep a normal pace because I do like to ramble. I teach and so on for a living, so I do like to ramble on. But yeah, so basically, the situation that my wife and I are in is that we were very very lucky. And I just mean that in the general sense. It wasn't necessarily lucky conception or birth, but we have an 8-year-old son who's nearly 9 years old. In 2011, my son was born with no real complications, and is an incredible son. Touch wood, he's an incredible boy, and that was great. And it was always our plan to have a larger family. We both come from families of four, and when you're young, you're just sort of conditioned that you have to be very careful because you'll get pregnant every time it happens. Every time you have unprotected sex or anything like that, and conceiving's easy and stuff like that. And obviously, as a lot of us know, as you grow older and you sort of grow in life and your experience grows, you sort of come to find that maybe it isn't that simple, and more issues around that. And yeah, so we were really, really happy when our son was born, and it was the best thing in the world. Like honestly, it's the best thing either of us have ever done, and he changed our lives. We had a great life before, but our lives are exponentially better. I couldn't even describe it in words, and we wanted to continue that. We're both very loving people. We're both very family orientated, and we really wanted to have a larger family. So after we felt comfortable, 2 years down the line, sort of in 2013, we decided it was time to try again, and we did successfully. But unfortunately, that pregnancy ended after 8 weeks. This would become quite a reoccurring habit, unfortunately, as we stand in 2020, where we are now. Sadly, um, I would say my wife has had 7 miscarriages because the incident has happened to her. So the language you would use is that my wife has had 7 miscarriages, but really I would say we've had 7 miscarriages. We've lost 7 babies at various stages of the pregnancy, and I'm able to say that quite straight faced and without any pain sort of behind the way I say it, because I'm used to delivering it now. I'm used to saying it. However, it doesn't make it any easier to say it. And yeah, so seven babies, unfortunately, we've lost at various stages from 8 weeks to unfortunately, which I will talk about a bit more length, but unfortunately at around 15 weeks, which is really hard. So when you approach 16 weeks because we're at the 4 month stage. So yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, so the first one caught us by surprise. You hear about it happening, and actually the figures and statistics that we were then given after that is that 1 in 4 pregnancies do end in miscarriage. Unfortunately, those are the statistics. So 25% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. Now, most of those, it appeared, did seem to be in the first 2 weeks of pregnancy before a lady would even know they were pregnant. So this is why it's not quite as aware, but there's this sort of social taboo about talking about it. And I hadn't really experienced it before. I wasn't really familiar with any family members that had it happen to them. Um, as it transpires, it had happened to more people than we realised. It's just no one wanted to talk about it because it was doom and gloom, and it was something really negative, or had this sort of film over it that people didn't want to talk about, and that isn't healthy at all. I think it's really, really important that we talk about it and deal with it together, and the importance of how we get through it, I guess. So yeah, it happened once, and unfortunately, the way it is, um, so we'd got to a stage where you sort of things weren't necessarily going right. I don't necessarily want to relive the painful sort of experiences one by one. I'll talk about them more in a general sort of sense, but um, you know, you get to scans and you think everything's right. And we were used to, going for scans and things with our son, who was born, as I said, in 2011. And we knew the rigmarole. We knew how it all worked. And the first time it caught us so badly by surprise when we had a scan because things weren't necessarily going right a little bit earlier. And I must admit, and this sounds terrible, but being that there's seven, the dates for me, and that's important. I say for me, roll into one. Now, I was going to ask my wife before this, before I recorded this interview, for dates and for things like that, of how many weeks was the first and the second and so on. But then I thought, actually, that wouldn't be an honest account from a partner's perspective, and it affects us both very differently. Affects us both very much, but very differently. And I think if I'm going to give an honest perspective from the partner's point of view, I think actually I shouldn't then go in pre-armed with the information. It should be off the top of my head from what I can remember. So yeah, we approached the first scan, which is normally between sort of 10 to 13 weeks. So I believe we were a little bit earlier. We're at the 10-week stage at this first one, and I said 8. But and that scan, there's nothing quite like it, where they go over the top and you hear the and you hear the heartbeat, and you fall in love instantly, and you've created that. There's life inside the person that you love, and isn't that incredible? But sadly, there wasn't a heartbeat, and they look around. You just think they'll find it. Baby's going to move around. So I wasn't ready for this. They just kept looking around, and then they look at you with those sad eyes, and they tell you, I'm so sorry, we can't find a heartbeat. And the world comes down. You think, what? I mean, huh? That's not, we didn't read that in the book. That's not how this works. You tell us there's the heartbeat, in 30 more weeks time we meet our baby. We did all the right bits. We got pregnant. That's what you're supposed to do when you want a baby. Done. But it wasn't to be. And yeah, what a job they have to do. I mean, they get to share the best joy, these midwives and sonographers, and share the moments of pure bliss with people showing them their baby for the first time on a scan on a screen. But then on the flip side, I never thought about the fact they have to talk to people like myself and my wife. We're absolutely shell shocked. You just feel, blindsided. Really, I just think we thought, things felt a little bit different for, I think, this time. Not, there wasn't really any signs. Um, Maybe a little bit of bleeding, but sometimes you'll read every blog in the world, you'll speak to every health advisor, and sometimes that's perfectly natural, sometimes it's not. And it's impossible to know. The human body is an incredible thing, but it's impossible to know one way or the other what's going on. So, yeah, they can't give you any answers after the first one. Don't do any tests because, it happens so often, 1 in 4. That's a lot of pregnancies it happens to, so they can't give any answers, and this would repeat. So the second one, that you're just advised, go again. It's very rare, miscarriage. It's most unlikely. You've had a son, most unlikely. Keep going, which you do, and of course, we persevered on. You feel broken, and you lost. You've got a sense of loss, and it's important to know you're grieving for someone who never got to be. It's a very different type of grieving, and I'm not saying one's worse than the other. Blimey, I'm not saying that, but when you grieve for someone you've known and you've loved, or you've known, and you've been part of their life, you grieve for your experiences with them, and you grieve for your feelings towards them, and you grieve for the person you knew or know. But when you're grieving for someone you've never met, that is a complete different type of grief, because you're grieving for their hopes and what you wish they would be, and the situation, and you're grieving for yourself because you imagine yourself holding that baby again, and being a dad or a mum again, and going through this experience, and sharing it with your son, and again, like with our child. And yeah, it's nothing. there's nothing you can do or say. Not everyone will try and help, and I want to talk about the situation first, and then talk about everything around it. So I'm just going to get through the experiences, and then talk about how it sort of made me feel and how we've dealt with it and stuff. So a second time we were successful again quite shortly afterwards, and again spotting. My wife was finding blood in the toilet, and again this time is different. Your heart's sinking. Oh shit! You're holding your breath. You're hoping things. Apologies for cussing. But you're worried. This time, and you're holding your breath. Not us again. Not us again. And you go in waiting for it. The sonographer goes over it, and this time I believe it was about 8 weeks, and that we went in, and unfortunately again I'm so sorry there's no heartbeat, and you just think what has happened. Like, I'm absolutely sandbagged, and by this stage my wife and I are, you know, a piece, shadows of the people we were, because yet again we've sort of going to phone our families who, there's a reason they say don't tell people until 12 weeks, but of course you tell the ones you love around you once you've got a positive pregnancy test, because that's it. You're pregnant, and you're going to, you're going to be grandma and granddad again, you're going to be aunt and uncle again, you're going to be, you tell people because you do, because you're so excited. It's not like we're broadcasting it on social media, but we tell people, and it's beyond gutting. And then you have to tell people again, and you have to, well, we'll go over this, but look at that look in their eye, that sympathy, that grief, and they feel so sorry for you. And but you don't. I didn't necessarily want people's grief or sorrow. I just wanted to make my wife feel better. And I felt empty as well, and helpless. There's nothing you can do as the partner. Men have it easy, really. It's not easy. I know it's not that easy at all. I'm generalizing, but we've done our bit, and then we sit back and we watch and we wait. Our bodies don't change. Our bodies, nothing. So, that was really rough, really, really rough. I started a new job, a dream job for me, just after this. Threw myself into that, so I was able to sort of, I suppose that's the way I dealt with my emotions. But we were still very close, and that was what's been important throughout. My wife and I still spoke all the time about it. We didn't fight about it. We were together, a united force, because it is such a big thing to go through. And we decided together that we wanted to try again. Yeah, and that we wanted this to happen, and yeah, it just it didn't it didn't end well. Obviously, you know the story. I started by saying we've had 7 miscarriages, we're only as far as three. Um, but yeah, this was yeah, it was just so bad. So I mean, I don't need to explain. There's that many. I don't need to explain them one by one. But then they start to be able to analyze what's going wrong, what's happening to the body. Why is this happening? They start to look at my wife's blood work and her history, her medical history, but because she's had a successful pregnancy before, it's very difficult for them to say anything. And they're looking at her blood and they can't really work out why. And the answer generally was, and no one's at fault here, is there's nothing really wrong. You should just try again. It's just really bad luck. Most people don't get three. The odds of getting three in a row are, I can't remember the statistic anymore, but it was, on par with certain lotteries and stuff. And you just think, well, it's a rubbish lottery to win this one. But we, we, yeah, we dealt with it. But the worst experience of all. So if I'm really honest, between 3 and 5, now recollecting back between 2014 and 2016, it must have been. It's one big horrible blur, and your time standing still. Our son was still growing, and we are having the most amazing experiences with him, and he's incredible. We felt so lucky to be parents already, and this was just making it feel even more lucky. And yeah, I just they mold into one. But the worst one for me, which I believe was the fifth, although I nearly convinced myself it was the third a second ago, was my poor wife. They were trying things at the doctors. I was giving her injections every day to thin her blood because they thought it might be that she had thicker blood because she used to struggle to get blood. So they said, well, actually, that might be starving the baby. It might not be getting into through the umbilical cord. Basically, your body is seen as a threat and starving the baby of blood, and that unfortunately our body might be killing the baby. So we were given, I had to give her an injection every morning, which she's not great with needles, bless her. I mean, who is? But every morning in the leg, and that was thinning it. It was like warfarin, whatever it's called. So she was taking it to thin her blood, and that you're holding your breath, and you get to 10 weeks, you get to 12 weeks and you think, oh my God, we're at the 12-week scan. This is crazy. We're at the point we're supposed to be. And you're still holding your breath, you're waiting for it to happen and you're tense all the time. And any slight, she'd sort of be eating something. She'd go, oh, my stomach. And, oh God, okay, what's wrong? Let me check. And we'd both be over the top all the time. And 12 weeks came, we had the discussion, should we tell people? And we didn't want to hurt people, so we didn't tell them. And then 13 weeks came and 14 weeks came. You think, oh my God, like this is it. Like we're going to be parents again. And finally, we're back. They found what was wrong. Excellent. And I think, ironically, just sort of like the week before, we decided, look, no, we can start telling people actually that they can be excited. We didn't broadcast it to the world by any stretch, but we finally told the family again, because we've been keeping information like that from them because we didn't want to hurt them anymore. And everyone was over the moon. But then that put the stress on everyone else that were thinking, oh, what if, and so on. But we were hook, line, and sinker. This is going to work. The injections are working. You make it to 4 months. You think, well, 5 months left. I'm nearly halfway through the pregnancy here. And yeah, I just remember being at work, and happily at work. Things were changing, world's going well, and I got a call from my wife in tears, and she was just apologising. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just there's blood. I've got to go to the hospital. I'm going. She drove herself to the hospital. Like it takes about 45 minutes to get to hospital. Straight to the gynecology ward that we had been 4 times previously. So we're very bloody familiar with it. And while they were waiting, they were saying, "Yeah, we're going to scan you. Don't worry, don't panic. We can do this. Don't worry." So she's there on her own, and so I went from work, and I worked an hour and a half away from home. So it was about an hour to the hospital from where I was. So I'm absolutely belting it down the motorway to get to her, to be by her side for this. I mean, of course, I knew the inevitable news would come, but when I got there, bless her, so before they were able to get the scan set up, because it was happening so fast, Shelley had unfortunately delivered our baby in the toilet. She'd had no choice, so just convulsions happen, same contractions. The body wants to push, and the body obviously rejected our daughter, as it transpired to be. So 4 months. So my wife had to get a nurse to help, essentially retrieve our daughter that she'd had to deliver on her own in a toilet, in a hospital, in a gynecology ward. When I wasn't there because I was at work, and I've got a lot of feelings towards that, because I was at work. I couldn't. I mean, realistically, life has to go on, but I couldn't be there for her. I wasn't close enough to get there to stop anything or keep her safe like I'm supposed to. And we were there. It felt like a day. It must have been. They sat us down, said to process it while they cleaned our daughter up for us. And they came in and said, "Would you like to meet her?" To say goodbye, which we did. That brings it all home, because as hard as a miscarriage is, it's horrendous. But a stillbirth or a miscarriage, when there's a physical being, an entity in front of you, and you can see the person you were going to love and the person they were going to be, and everything, that this precious little perfect bundle. I pulled back the little sort of, they put a little blanket over her, and she's a good, this sort of big, and a human, just a perfectly formed little human. I mean, her toes a little bit webbed and stuff where they haven't developed yet. I mean, she was, where that is natural, but she just needed to get bigger. That's all. But she wasn't ever going to. So that was really hard, and I'll always be able to picture her. And I'm glad we did see her. And for me, things changed. I managed to process it a bit, and that was where you just, we hit rock bottom massively. But it was incredible. Like, it's just, I mean, incredible in the respect that how does this much emotion, how does a human body deal with this much? Like, how is that possible? And everyone's dealing with their own stuff. Good God, I know that. Everyone's got horrible things going on. Like, I've never once thought I've got it worse than anyone. I still don't to this day. There are so many people worse off than me. I'm very lucky, and I have an incredible son. But at that moment, you're so upset. You're beyond anything. So, and the blessed, we were trying to be polite to the the midwives and nurses that are talking to us, and they're consoling you, but all you want to do is just say, I'm sorry, we have to go home. We just need to close the curtains, pick our son up, and just be away from everyone, everything, and just process. But we were there for a while, and they go over everything, and then they ask you if you want to attend the funeral, because once a baby lives over 14 weeks, once they pass the 14-week stage, I think they're classed as life, so that is classed as a death. Whereas before that, it's a premature. But so they aren't registered, well, not registered, but it's not a funeral. So they asked if I'd like to attend the funeral, which of course I couldn't. I wasn't in a place to do that. So they hold a little memorial at the crematorium, of which was held a couple of days later. And then I was invited to go and pick her ashes up. And they give you a little rubber duck. I'll never forget that. That drive is not a nice drive, but just the worst bit of it was having to leave my wife's side for 2 minutes. So my work at the time were great, and they gave me compassionate leave to support my wife. They were good, and yeah, that it was a game changer. It was a breaker, and yeah, I'm just at that point. Neither of us knew how, you know, what we could do. I just wanted her to be healthy, and it's not for me to share like her story. But obviously, counseling really helped afterwards. And that's how together we got over it, I guess. And I will talk about that in a sec. But there was a sixth and a seventh. Not if I'm going to be 100% honest with you, we were broken. We couldn't do this anymore. It was too much for us to go through. I think the human heart can only deal with so much. So 6 and 7, basically where Shelley was starting. After this was 2 more years down the line. So this is probably 2018. Basically, we had 2 accidents because contraception didn't work properly for us. And yeah, so we found ourselves desperately wanting a child. And at 8 weeks, we found ourselves in an abortion clinic talking about the potential of an abortion, which was something which we were never the kind of people that would ever had to have considered. Each to their own, everyone's scenario. I would never judge, and this gave me a complete sort of other side of the story of why some people have to have these. You can't blanket say it's wrong or it's right. Every situation is different, and we couldn't even talk. We were crying that much in there, just saying, having to say what we wanted to happen, because nothing had changed. Shelley wasn't on medication. Her body couldn't. Basically the doctors after the 5th had said, this isn't going to work for you. I don't think. Like, if you want to try again, you have to let us know. We'll monitor you all the time, but we don't think this is right for you. And we'd accepted that. And then we'd had this accident. We got pregnant, which we don't seem to have a problem with. But this time it was different. It was irresponsible, really, but also very bad luck in terms of contraception. So can't blame ourselves fully. But yeah, we had the conversation. They completely understood. It's horrendous to have to go to these sort of places. But before they did a test, they agreed with us that it was probably the right thing to do. We consulted support people as well who agreed, but at 9 weeks Shelley was scheduled to go in at 10 weeks because it was just horrendous, because we knew this was going to end badly again, and at 9 weeks it did end badly, before we even got a chance to do it. And it sounds horrible, but I'm grateful for that we didn't ever have to go through that chemical abortion or anything like that, because that would have been rough, really rough on us. Just and 7th time round, we didn't tell anyone. We considered having to go to clinic, and before we'd even arranged anything, this time at 7 weeks, Shelley lost a baby, and part of you secretly hopes this is going to be the miracle time where it's different. But yes, 7 and counting. But we aren't counting anymore. We're taking every precaution. We've given up that, and we always focused on our son. But you've got to stop somewhere, like suffering. Why are we doing this to ourselves? So in terms of moving on to talking about dealing with grief, dealing with support, talking, that's my main thing. It isn't easy. It's horrible to talk. I hate starting the conversation. I mean, this feels nice just talking to myself in front of a computer screen that eventually one person, 10 people might see. But we how are you feeling? That's the best question you can ask someone. I know it's cliche and you see it on the adverts, but it is true. And that person saying, crap, actually have crap, or I'm having an okay day. It's okay to have an okay day when the world's falling down around you. You are still allowed to have okay days, but you're going to have really bad days. I reached out after the fifth one where we had a really bad time to SANS, who are a charity, incredible charity, might I add, for neonatal and stillbirth deaths and supporting the parents. And I'm going to be honest, as a dad, I didn't even think there would be stuff that existed for me. I know that sounds really caveman, but I just thought it didn't happen to my body. So why would anyone want to help me? Everyone that would ask me would ask how Shelley was doing, and how is she? How's she coping? And very few people think to ask how you're doing. Now, I don't mean to sound selfish at all, because realistically, I don't have the physical pain. It didn't physically happen to me, so I completely understand. And that isn't anyone being selfish. That isn't anyone not thinking of me. But at the same time, you just need one or two people to ask that you can talk to, that you trust, as the partner, because you have feelings in this situation as well. And it's really, really difficult. And you're trying to process these feelings whilst also being the support network for the person you love more than anything, as well as your child. But the person that you love so dearly, and you need to be there for them whilst also breaking inside yourself. So you do need to let that out. And I contacted this charity SANS, and just said, how do I help my wife? What do I say to her when she asks questions? What do I say to her? How how do I process her? I told them my situation, and they were amazing. They really turned the mirror and said, how do you feel? Like, what do you want to say? How do you feel about it? Please talk to us. And I spoke to them a little bit more. It's over emails. I'm not great at picking up the phone. But they were amazing. And that, I don't know, that made me feel a bit more energetic, that I could deal with this. And I reached out to our family. It was around the time that we'd lost my wife's nan, and then they were all really, it was out of the blue, and they were all really struggling. But there wasn't, I didn't feel she was getting enough support from everyone, not from every single person, but there was, I just thought people needed to take allowances, and maybe help her a little bit to deal with it. But that was positive in some respects, and was well received. And for other people who had other stuff going on in their lives, that thought that you should deal with stuff on your own, and don't subscribe to this problem shared is a problem half scenario. So there was backlash, that they were angry at me for asking for help, and you could get fixated on that, but why? Because everyone's got stuff going on in their own life, so you've got to understand that. But everyone's dealing with stuff, and but do reach out. I wouldn't have it any differently. I would reach out every single time. That doesn't mean be needy necessarily. It isn't in me to beg for help and support and stuff like that. But talking to people made it all feel real. The more at first we were saying we don't want people to feel bad about it, so people would ask questions, and we'd skirt around it. The terminology we'd use is lost and so on, but 7 babies died. You have to be clear. We told our son the fifth time that he was going to be a brother, because we were confident that a big brother, because we were confident it was going to happen. We'd made it past 12 weeks, and we had to break it to him. And you have to be very clear with the terminology you use, that unfortunately, baby sister, as it turned out, after they'd given us the information she was a girl, has died, unfortunately, and you have to break to him softly. If I'm honest, he wasn't looking forward to being a big brother and sharing his parents' affection and toys. So I'm not sure at the age of sort of 5, as he would have been, that it probably processed in any way. But yeah, just you talk about it, but you have to understand you're a human being in this too. As the partner, you have a responsibility. Just go with it. I mean, you have a responsibility that you need to be their network, you need to be their rock, yes, but you don't have to feel like a rock. I didn't feel like a rock once, and I'm not saying I did a perfect job. Good God, I'm not saying I did a perfect job, but I didn't put added pressure on her. I just listened. If she wanted to talk, if she didn't want to talk, I didn't push it. And there are things I would probably have done differently if I really think about it off the top of my head. It's more like, you know, just don't know, just, asking more questions maybe. But that's all you can do. But you do need to understand that you're going to have complex feelings to process as well. So have someone, if it's one friend, if it's a parent, if it's a complete stranger, a counselor, a doctor, it doesn't matter. But you must talk to someone about it as well, because how are you supposed to help that person if you can't process what's here as well? Mental health obviously is vitally important, and you need to have yourself strong and ready to do that. So there is no secret formula to dealing with it. It doesn't make it any easier. Grief is horrendous regardless of what stage it happens in. It's a naff experience, and I'd happily talk at length, even more length, about this, obviously, to anyone who ever wanted to talk about it. If I could help anyone, just listen to their situation or compare notes or anything, I'd be very willing to listen. And please do feel free to contact me if you want to get in touch via this channel or whatever. But I just I don't have pearls of wisdom, because it doesn't necessarily make the pain go away. But I can tell you, with time, I don't hurt anywhere near as much. And maybe I'm able to say that as a parent of one, like I have an incredible son. I keep saying that, but so I can channel all my love into this perfect little being. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt any less, because I know I wanted to be a dad again, and get used to the question where I used to not like making people feel uncomfortable, because people would say, "Why only one? Why'd you stop at one?" Or, like, "Didn't you want more kids?" and stuff like that. And people aren't being rude. They're not. It doesn't happen very often to most people, and most people keep it secret, so they don't think that asking a question like that could hurt. And I have to say, I used to say, "Oh, no, no, we didn't want one was more than enough," that token thing to make people feel better. But actually, that's not true, and that's a disservice to my daughter and our other 6 children that we never got to meet. So I now say, yeah, it just, unfortunately, we got close, a lot of times, but never quite got over the line. Or I say it in a way like that isn't doom and gloom, but also is honest and open. And I find that probably the best way of dealing with it. And yes, you have to look in people's eyes when they look at you, and either they get watery, or you look in their eyes and you can see that tilt of the head, that little bit of sympathy. I don't like that. It doesn't work for me. That's not what I need. I don't want your sympathy necessarily, but I appreciate why it's there. It's because it's empathy, and people are human and they care. So it isn't from a bad place. It's just I can't help that I find it awkward, if people feel bad for me, because I don't want that. I don't feel bad for myself. I just wish I could have protected my wife, and the experiences will haunt her, unfortunately. Delivering a baby in a toilet on your own, how do you, the sort of thing that would happen in a really dramatic soap opera when they were trying to make things hyper dramatic. But apparently it happens in real life as well, and you have to deal with those situations without a rule book. So but she's amazing. She's the most resilient woman in the world, my wife, and she talks about it. She doesn't like talking. I have to crowbar a lot of stuff out of her. Anyway, I'm fine. I'm fine. As most people will know, they'll probably know someone who have a partner like that. But she's incredible. She did talk to a counsellor, an amazing support worker that the NHS put her onto, about it, and they were fantastic. And it didn't really just focus on that. They did a couple of weeks talking about that, and then life in general. And some of our family members were incredible. Some of our friends were incredible. People rally around you, but it's soon forgotten. And people will forget. They'll talk about it in front of us all the time. We got two things we have now, is that people will either forget it's ever happened and then just say, "Oh, imagine baby dying," or something like that. And you think, "Yeah, I remember that little bit." But people's lives go on. Millions of things have happened in their life since. Why are they thinking about your grief or your pain all the time? Of course they're not. And they're not doing it spitefully. You can't expect people to be thinking about you and your experience all the time. So you'll get on. Or you get the other side of the equation, where anyone breaks the news that a member of the family is pregnant, and heaven forbid you could ever be happy about that again. So people are like, such and such is pregnant, but they don't want to tell you. It's hushed tones, or with a mixed message. And they don't realize that you can generally be happy. The fact there is still joy in the world, and that other people can still have babies, and that you're going to be an uncle or an auntie, or your friends are going to have children. It's the most amazing thing. I would never begrudge anybody else. Neither would my wife. We are so lucky to be around so many amazing little ones, and it's a gift. It's an absolute gift. So it doesn't mean. This is my message to other people, that to help people that are going through it. Don't stop talking to them. They're not any different. If as soon as you start treating them different, then they become different. We're not different. We're just as happy. One person's sorrow isn't another person. It doesn't mean they can't feel joy for someone. That's really important. I nearly didn't say that. I nearly forgot to say that bit of the message. So that's really important, and something that I would recommend from an outside. But yeah, just it gets easier as time goes on. It never goes away. We like butterflies. We got a lovely poem from the crematorium with our daughter, that said about a butterfly flying away and you couldn't catch it, and the essence of it was beautiful. So we love when we see butterflies. We have pictures of butterflies up, and statues, and things like that. And yeah, I feel really blessed, really, to have the incredible son we do. So we're very lucky in that respect. We've got one incredible one. So we talk about having a tree, and then the seven trees that didn't get to be, like the pollen floating in the wind, and things like that. Whatever analogy works for you. But we talk about it still a lot. We talk about the situation, about how, what maybe our daughter would have been like, what other children would be like. And, you know, we were able to spread our ashes, put them with my wife's father, and it's quite cathartic, I guess. It's just whatever the word is, it's quite, it makes you feel better about it. But we grieve from time to time. Occasionally you have bad days, but the more distance between the incidents, and now it is better. I'm on the other side of it. I can talk about it. Like here, I'm conversing, and I'm not at the verge of tears. And I am a male that cries quite a lot easily. Put a Pixar film on, I'm in tears in seconds. So I'm not by any means a man's man or a toughie, or well, you'll be getting that anyway from my camp demeanor. But yeah, I'm not. I'm not saying I did it necessarily. I'm the strongest, or I'm the best to give advice, but it's something I can talk about, and it's something I think is important to talk about. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but it's rubbish. It's a horrible situation. It doesn't ever necessarily make it go away, or the situation never feel better, but you do move on in some capacity, and you take with you the good bits, and you remember. That's the most important thing. You remember what happened. You still love them in your own way. Um, and yeah, you love all your kids, the ones that got to be and the ones that didn't get to be. Yeah, and yeah, that's really my story, I guess. Like I say, I'm happy to, if anyone wants to approach talking to me, or anything. If I could help anyone, I can't recommend enough talking to SANS. If you can support them, or you need help from them, they are amazing. This SANDS, they supported me so much, and I like to do things to them on a yearly basis. If I can raise the money in any stretch, then great. And if this helps get them noticed by one extra person, then fantastic. But there is support, and even if you don't use them, there are plenty of charities out there that support this. Don't go it alone. Talk to people. You might never get answers. We don't know why my wife can't have children, and I hate that, because it sounds like I'm asserting blame on her that she can't have children, but the issue is that her body won't hold on to children. So it sounds like I'm asserting blame, but it's a fact. There's no blame here. It's not meant to be, and we've accepted that fact, and we will enjoy the wonderful son that we have. Maybe one day, you never know, when he's grown up, we might adopt, or consider, fostering or something, being parents again in some capacity. There are wonderful things that you can do. And yeah, we're so lucky for what we have, really. And yeah, I hope this can help someone in some capacity somewhere. And my heart goes out to anyone that's in this situation. There are so many people struggling alone you don't hear about. So many people have a story that you don't know. Just think about that, and think about what they might be dealing with. You don't have to have an answer. It's bloody horrible. Like, no one could have said anything to me that would have made me feel better. No one. Maybe the doctor could have said there's a heartbeat. That would have made me feel better. But after the situation, do you get what I mean? That no one could have said anything that made me feel like I was whole again. I had to put the pieces back together myself, and help my wife put her pieces back. I couldn't tell her to put them back. Nothing I was going to say was a magic word. So yeah, that's everything from me, really. And it feels good to get it out, and hopefully, yeah, this might help someone someday. Thanks very much.